You want eye contact? Okay sir, by user expensive _ theme 7023. Background, I used to work retail in a DVD/CD store that rhymes with Manatee, Australia. We had computers that we could use to find certain titles/artists in the store if we had it in stock, or we could even order from any of the other 300 plus stores in the country and have it shipped to the store. Many people would use this for older CDs or collector items that were harder to get. One day an older bloke came in asking about a certain smaller 80s rock band that I can't remember. I looked on the computer for him and was able to track down their album names, which of those albums he wanted, located the album in stores around the country and got his details to enter into the computer for when the albums arrived in stores so that we could contact him. He thanked me and said that he was so happy that we could get these albums in for him and left the store. The next day I get called into the boss's office because of a customer complaint. It was and is my only ever complaint in any job for the past 9 years of working. He had rang up and complained that while my service was lovely I didn't make enough eye contact when I was using the computer. Cue malicious compliance. 3 days later he came in because he had another band he wanted to order. Luckily I was working. As soon as he walked in I greeted him with the biggest smile and looked him straight in the eyes. When he asked for if we had any of his band in stock I typed it into the computer while maintaining direct eye contact. It took me about 4 tries to find the right keyboard letters as I wasn't that great at touch typing. He was starting to get annoyed but he didn't voice it. Then I had to search what store location these albums were at. That took another couple of attempts to type. I turned the computer monitor around to the point it looked like it was going to snap off. I had to move displays from the counter which took more time, but finally I was able to set it up at such an angle that I could read it off with a quick glance but also still maintain eye contact. At this point he started to squirm and look away, but I was only beginning. Next was his details and taking his deposit, normally $10. It took me a solid 6 attempts to enter his details into the system as you had to select each box to type in, and that was hard considering I wasn't looking. At this point he had gone rather quiet and was looking at his shoes. When he handed me his money I still maintained direct eye contact and even dropped it accidentally out of my hand, which then led me to awkwardly slap around on the counter until my hand found it. Wouldn't want to break that eye contact looking for a few coins. After all the typing attempts it took me an extra 10 minutes to serve him all because I couldn't look at what I was doing. To this day I've seen him a couple of times but he won't come to my register and he doesn't make eye contact or hides in the aisles until I'm busy with another customer. A shame really, he had such lovely brown eyes. My friend's cousin complied with his cool family's demands, by user Plogon56. This happened a while back, maybe 3 to 4 years. My college friend told me about how his cousin basically screwed over his family by moving out when they told him to. Note, to make it easier to follow I'm gonna use fake names: cousin, Jack, cousin sister, Tina, cousin's parents, Bob and Mary. So Jack is roughly 28 and still living with his parents, but he pays their bills, ELAC, water, internet, etc. and this is a big 2-story house so the bill is big too. His sister, 24, had left the house by then and gotten married to a guy that makes good money. She had taken credit for paying the bills and convinced Bob and Mary to kick him out because he's a shut-in loser because none of them understood his job. A bit of backstory on their parents: my friend tells me they're like those stereotypical teens in those cliché high school movies. Basically they look down on nerds and think people who study hard are uncool, that type of thing. Anyway, they kept that mentality even after growing up and having kids, so they always looked down on Jack for being nerdy and favoritized Tina because she was pretty and popular in high school. But apparently Jack didn't really care because his personal life had friends he cared about and he connected more with his relatives. So they all confront him, and after badmouthing him about how he stays in his room mostly and how his sister, her husband and child need the space, told him he has till the end of the month to leave. This was done close to the first week. Jack didn't say a word, he just nodded and left by the end of that week and moved 3 cities away to a city closer to his other relatives. 2 months go by and his sister calls him asking why this month's bills weren't paid, as their lights and water had been shut off. He tells her that she should have paid them since she was allegedly paying them before. About a week goes by and he gets a call from his parents explain how his sister confessed to everything and how he can come back and have his old room back so long as he kept helping them pay the bills. He refused, saying he's enjoying living by himself now and how he can focus on his work more because he's away from them. Afterwards he blocked their numbers and now they have to pay for it themselves. He doesn't know what happened after because they're no longer invited to family gatherings. Costing a company millions, by user Strikeronima. So I worked as a QA, quality assurance, at a factory I'll call Ida Or. To get started I'll explain their report process. when something goes wrong in the factory that's directly tied to quality, such as bad coloring or defects, I as a QA lead would have to write a report. These reports were very detailed and extremely time-consuming. Now when something went wrong that wasn't directly tied to quality but affected it, such as a machine breaking or foreign material getting in the machines, the lead in charge of the machines were supposed to write the report. Somehow all the reports ended up being written by me even though I had my own time-consuming job to do. I had been fighting to not do others' reports for months and my boss told me to remind other leads when a report was needed. One day I'm doing my reports plus my data analysis duties and I hear over the radio that a refrigerator unit has gone out and all the product was coming out as boiled mush instead of frozen, so I call refrigeration and tell them you need to do a report on this. I'll send out an email counting how many pallets of product we lost. So I send the email and continue on with my day. 2 weeks later my boss calls me into her office and asks me why I didn't write a report on the incident. I say you told me to remind the other leads to do it and not write their reports. She responded, well, if you have time to send an email you have to write a report. Then she makes me sign a write-up for failure to do my duties, which I did placidly cause she had written up everyone else in my department and had been looking for something to write me up for, so I decided to let her have it and get it out of the way. Well, a couple months later and the exact same thing happens and all I do is tell refrigeration over the radio to write a report. I did nothing else knowing that refrigeration wouldn't write it. Because there was no report or helpful emails, the product was almost shipped out 2 months later, but it was caught by one of my QAs who mentioned the incident to my boss. Boss calls me to her office and tells me this incident is going to cost the company millions in storage fees for the time it was already stored, disposal fees, lost product and a fine from Walmart for not meeting contract. Why didn't you email me about this? I didn't have the time, but I did tell refrigeration to write a report. She couldn't write me up for it cause I had emails from her telling me how to handle these situations. Festival Drink Token Compliance, by user Biggs. A couple of years ago, I was attending a music festival where you had to buy tokens in order to exchange them for drinks. They would charge you an additional token for the reusable cup they would serve the drink in, and to encourage people not to throw them everywhere you could bring back the cups to get back money equivalent to 1 token. At the end of the day, I wanted to leave but I still had about 10 tokens left. I went directly to the stand where they sold them to exchange them back into money. After a short queue, when it was my turn, I showed my 10 tokens, and was told they didn't exchange the tokens back into money, only the cups. I tried to argue with the person working there, but they told me it was definitely not possible. I told them that it was all right, and that I'll be back in a minute. I then proceeded to the bar, and asked for 10 empty cups in exchange for my 10 tokens. They looked at me strangely but immediately agreed to the exchange. I then went back to the stand where they sold the tokens, especially choosing the same queue I was in before, and after another short wait I was in front of the same employee. They looked at me. I showed them the stack of 10 clean cups. They looked at the cups. Then they looked back at me. Okay, here is your money. Want me to scrub the registers at peak time? Sure thing, boss, by user Demon Thestax. I work in the store where you pay for a card and the cashiers all sit. The store floors frequently get pretty dirty because, well, there's a lot of customers coming in and out, especially at the time this story happens. I'm doing some backstock when the mod comes up to me and says, hey, store manager wants you to scrub produce in the register area. Keep in mind, our scrubber is a behemoth, loud, and can be difficult to maneuver, not the best equipment to pull out at 5 p.m. on a Monday. Also, there are lines 8 to 10 people deep at both open registers. I point this out to the mod and she just shrugs, saying, just get it done. Okay then. I pull out the scrubber, and happen to get a lucky break. Produce is empty so it only takes me a couple minutes. Now the registers. Still crowded. I take the scrubber around the empty registers, feeling the glare of customers on my back, whether it was from the noise or the wait, I don't know and nor do I care. Now I'm left with the 2 gem-packed registers. There's no way I could ask people to wait a moment to let me through, they're already pissed. I can see the manager coming, gesturing at me to get it done. So I do the most efficient thing I can think of. I go to the back of the line, shut down the scrubber and wait. And wait and wait and wait. Customers are lining up behind me and the cashiers are holding back a laugh as I creep closer. Finally, I'm next, and I run the scrubber through the registers. Thankfully the line on the second register cleared just as I was finishing the first. All done. I take the scrubber back to the back room, and I had just started to empty it when the store manager comes storming in. SM, why did that take you so long? Scrubbing is supposed to go quickly, we're too busy for you to be standing around. Me, you wanted me to scrub the registers, but the registers were packed. I told Maud that it would take a while. SM, you weren't scrubbing, you were just standing in line. Me, yup. That was the best way to get through the line. The SM and I have a stare down for a few seconds before she throws her hands up and walks away. And I've never been asked to scrub the registers during peak times again.